This is a Kawasaki ZX4RR. It's the brand new hotness from Kawasaki, one of the coolest entry-level four-cylinder motorcycles you can buy. And this is a 2008 Yamaha R6, the tried and true classic squid missile for those of you who want to go fast and party hard. Now, a lot of people have been asking me in the comments, Yam, how close is a Kawasaki ZX4RR to a real Supersport like the R6? Well, lucky for you, I have both machines, and today I'm going to tell you all the differences between these two bikes. Now, I want you to remember, this ZX4 is a giveaway motorcycle, but this R6 is also a giveaway motorcycle. So if you want the chance to win any one of these motorcycles or the other amazing giveaway motorcycles we have, head over to yammynoob.co, become a member, sign up, check out all the official rules. We're giving these two things away and you're not gonna wanna miss it. Let's talk about the ZX4RR first. This machine is the new thing from Kawasaki. It features a 399cc inline 4, making a claimed 85-ish horsepower. In reality, this bike makes about 53 wheel horsepower measured on a dyno due to a small kind of issue with the North American tune. Apparently, Kawasaki thought we did not deserve to have full power, so they kind of neutered this motorcycle. That's going to be the first difference because the R6 over here makes a boatload of horsepower. This is a 2008 vintage. This one has a flash on it. This motor was rated at 128 horsepower new back in 2008. It features a 599cc inline 4. So 200 cc's more of displacement on the R6, but producing, what is that? Well over 2x the horsepower, 2.5x the horsepower of the ZX4. So kind of unfair to compare. The next thing I want to point you guys out to is the frame. Now, this ZX4RR over here features a kind of blended Ninja 400 ZX6 frame. You can see it's a welded subframe over here, and it's a trellis frame. Down here it becomes really nice and thick and beefy, and it mates up down here kind of like a Supersport. Now, it's fitted to this swing arm that is very, very thin, as we're about to see on the R6. That's going to be a big difference. So lateral rigidity on the ZX4 is pretty decent, but it's very, 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 very hard to compare the ZX4 to a true Supersport frame, because check this out, guys. This Yamaha R6, this features the tried and true classic aluminum twin spar setup. Look how big and beefy this frame is on this bike. That's gonna make all the difference. Side to side when you're on track or on twisty roads with this thing, the R6 plants a line and it does not move. Look at this swing arm. Look at the angle of approach here. Look at the pivot point. Look how beefy this thing is. That's a huge difference when you're looking at the ZX4 versus the R6. You are absolutely going to notice a difference in the handling of these two machines, even at a kind of intermediate level on street applications. The next thing I want to talk about, of course, is ergonomics. Now, motorcycles are, of course, their engine and frame, but how they fit is a big thing too. And this is where the ZX4 is very unique. This motorcycle doesn't really sit like a Supersport. If I swing a leg over this machine, I'm kind of getting Ninja 400 vibes. And that's not a bad thing because this is a street bike. This was not designed as a race bike, which is the big difference when you're looking at 600s. Because the ZX4 wasn't designed as a homologated race bike, there's a lot of parts bin stuff here. There's more amenable street stuff. This gas tank, you notice, is a Ninja 400 gas tank pretty much. The shape of it is designed to be a street bike. The reach to the bars, very comfortable. The overall package, super comfortable, nice to live with. The seat height is an approachable 31.5 inches on this thing. This is a very low seat. I think a lot of people could flat foot this thing. You guys will see, I just swung a leg over it. Me at about 5'11", I got a very big bend in my knees. This is not a super sport motorcycle really when you think about it. R6. This is the classic super aggressive, super committed riding stance. When you swing a leg over this machine, you already notice how different it is from the ZX4. It's got this big, wide gas tank over here, and that's because it's designed for you to be in the attack position. That's when you're on a racetrack and you're like this, chin all the way down here in the pocket, full tuck, blasting up out of corners, grabbing gears down, doing all that stuff. The peg height is much taller. The reach to the ground is much taller. It's about a 34-inch seat height on this machine. And because it was designed as a race replica, that's going to be the big difference. Now, one thing that these bikes actually have in common is the ram air system and the sound that they make. Both of these machines feature a really cool little pipe from the front of the bike all the way into the air intake. The R6 has it right here. You can see these fins, and you can actually see the pipe coming through here on the top of the on the dash right there. That pipe feeds in air to the engine. And then of course the ZX4 has the same setup, but a little bit different. Ram air right in here goes directly into the motor. Now we're gonna go ahead and start up both motorcycles just so you get a sense for how they sound. 16,000 RPM redline on this ZX4RR. We started up here. This is that classic inline-4 Japanese sound. The R6, to the untrained ear, sounds pretty much the same. As we go here, we'll start it up. It's obviously a little bit louder. We've got a pipe on this one. It's a little bit different, you know? She's cold, she doesn't want to rev. But it's that same buttery smooth, purring inline-4 sound that you'd find on these Japanese machines. Another big difference is going to be suspension. Stock for stock, something like an R6 has fully adjustable front forks. The forks are much larger. You're gonna get much better suspension characteristics from the front end of this machine versus something like the ZX4, which has non-adjustable front forks. The rear shock as well. You notice here the linkage style system that the R6 uses is a straight up and down system. This is a very classic setup for Supersport motorcycles. The subframe is bolted onto the actual frame of the motorcycle. This is really the metal here. This is just a cheap, flimsy plastic thing that they bolt onto the frame because this has a removable subframe. That's gonna make it better in racing and track applications because if you crash this thing, you may not wad up the frame, you may just need a new subframe, and that makes it a whole lot cheaper than having to get a whole new frame like you'd have to do on the ZX4RR over here. As we mentioned earlier, this frame, it's welded right here. So if you were to crash this bike and mess up the frame, you're pretty much completely SOL. Rear shock over here has a ZX10 style setup. It does have a linkage and it does mount up right here, kind of similar to a ZX10, but the whole setup here and the fact that the swing arm is so skinny is pretty different from the R6. That's gonna be a pretty different setup. Couple other things I wanted to note is the ZX4 features a couple things stock because it's a newer bike that old 600s just don't have. Auto blipper down, quick shifter up, traction control, a lot of different settings on this machine, a full color TFT. This is a much more modern bike, so the 600s of days past just don't have that kind of stuff. You look at the R6 over here, this just has a big old sweeping analog tack, a tiny little speedo right over there. And that's about all you get. I think you may get a gas light if you run low, and that's it. You also get a shift light, because again, this was built to be a race bike. This was built as a homologated race machine so that Yamaha could take these and then go racing in different categories like World Supersport. The ZX4 doesn't really fit into any current race categories. A buddy of mine were actually talking about this because we both race in CMRA, and we're like, what would the ZX4 race against? And right now, it's seeming like these are gonna race against the big twins. Your Aprilia Tuono 660s, or rather the RS660, the Yamaha R7, those sorts of machines is where this would slot in, but it's gonna be a little bit undergunned because of that torque not quite being there. So guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video. Those are the main differences between a ZX4 and an R6. Personally for me, I think it really comes down to the fact that the R6 and traditional 600s have crazy high compression engines, make a boatload of horsepower, and are ergonomically very aggressive. That's really the main differences. But the experience of the ZX4 pretty similar to a 600. You're still getting a screaming inline 4, you still got a sporty riding position, you're still able to carve up corners with this thing. It just was never anticipated to be built as a homologated race machine, so it's actually a lot softer and nicer to live with on the daily. If I were to choose a street bike, I would probably choose this ZX4, mostly because this thing is kind of like the Miata of motorcycling. You can really just rail and have so much fun with this thing in a street application, whereas the R6 is just kind of a lot for street duty when you're actually trying to get it. Now, if you ask me what would I prefer to track day or for racing, it's the R6 all day long. R6s are so sweet bone stock, and if I was on a track, I'd be on an R6. I wouldn't be on a ZX4 personally. So guys, that's gonna wrap up today's video. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Remember, both of these bikes are giveaway bikes, along with our Ninja H2 and our KTM RC390. Visit yammynoob.co, become a member, and check out all the cool giveaway bikes we have on there. Get yourself a helmet, get yourself a jacket, get yourself whatever you need over there, and get your entries to win. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Brother, I was just like you once before. I remember I was a squid. I was doing terrible things on the street, but then I found Yammy Noob, and I kept watching Yammy Noob, and that made me feel better. And when I got better, I stopped doing terrible things on my H2 back here. So I implore you, keep watching Yammy Noob. Click subscribe. Watch the next video.